He has a Morgan too.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and Betsy got herself a Morgan.
Uh-huh.
And Tammy Anderson just
Oh my gosh,
picked up one
yeah.
a while ago.
I've had Morgans for, since 1970.
Wow.
Yeah.
Always?
Cool.
Always a Morgan?
Oh, no, I had thoroughbreds and, yeah, I've had a lot of horses along throughout, but always Morgans. I always had a Morgan. And they were the ones that stayed with me for life until they died.
Yes.
Like 30 years.
Yeah.
And they are long lived.
Mhm.
We had a Morgan that lived in our barn that was 35.
Yeah.
My
This
friend
stallion
of
was
Solero is retired, but he's
38.
only 20. I'm like, oh God.
You got another 10 years.
before and retired.
I want to watch her.
We've had-
He was retired a lot. He had an injury.
Oh,
But-
yeah, that changes everything.
Before I married Daryl,
But
we were
he's
out
my
for
baby,
dinner.
so.
And we ran into this girl that I used to take riding lessons with many, many years ago. And I said, hey, whatever happened to your horse Phantom? And she said, oh, he just died last year. And I'm like, really? How old was he? 41. I never saw a man
Was that-
so white. The color drained out of his face because at the time my horse was like, I think he was 20.
Was that Sarah?
No.
Sarah Moses?
No.
Her horse was Phantom.
Really?
Yeah, Morgan.
This,
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
this horse
Yeah.
was a
She won
Arab
Grand.
cross of some kind.
Oh, okay. She won a lot in the Grand National with Phantom before. Yeah, she moved him on to a younger rider. Yeah, and he's got to be.
41.
He's got to be.
Well, my horse
That'll-
lived to 37.
That'll be Solero. He'll
Just to
Forever.
just to
he'll just,
rob you
yeah,
of
just
your
to
retirement.
Really, right.
We'll milk you
Up
dry.
in Airwood Creek, though, they've got some of the retired show horses, Morgans, that are all teaching in their lesson program. And Jazz, I don't know her registered name, Jazz is her barn name. She is gotta be
In her 30s.
36.
Oh.
She's still teaching lessons. She's the one that is just anybody can, well, they're very careful about weight now, about
Yeah.
putting, not putting too much weight on her, but she just packs those little kids around, she gets up underneath them if they start putting up balance. She's just one of those great mares that you'll, never be able to
Worth her weight in
replace.
gold.
Absolutely. Yeah, like Colleen. Colleen goes to the barn and goes, he owes us nothing.
Yep.
She owes us nothing. She owes us, except just give them the best retirement
Right.
possible. So
How
get
sweet.
the osteopath out. They get more body treatments than I'll get in a lifetime.
Bring that up.
It's funny, I do equine massage. I'm like, boy, I really need a massage. Okay, so pretty small group, so this is going to be very informal. So if you have questions, I mean, I usually kind of deliver these talks just based on the audience and, what it is you're looking for. I think you're all English, dressage, huh? Hunter, okay. So I am a saddle fitter. I started, oh my gosh, almost 4 years ago, and I always like to tell people how I got into it because literally I kind of fell into it. I was in the corporate world, and I was going out to ride my horse, the one who's retired, so I was just going to get on him bareback. But I put a little, really don't want to jump on him my size bareback, so I put a little plastic cavaletti on the deck, which was our mounting block. And I had one foot up there, and I was just swinging one leg over, and somebody behind me said, "Oh, Monique, you're looking for a job. You should be a saddle fitter." And I went, "What?" And I landed on the deck, and so that night I was at home sitting on my bag of ice. I can't even say I fell off my horse. I wasn't really on. So it was kind of humbling, but I was sitting on my bag of ice on the couch that night and researching what it took. And there's no certification, it's not like a lawyer or an accountant or, there's no governing body. I mean, anybody can read a book and call themselves a saddle fitter, and there's a lot of them out there. I went through a course that was about 6 months long down in South Carolina, and along with that we had to learn so much anatomy. I thought the course was fantastic because, it's not like putting on a pair of shoes and if they fit you or if they feel comfortable or whatever. I mean, unfortunately, it's not only does the saddle fit you, does the saddle fit the horse. And unfortunately, they don't talk. and a lot of them are very stoic, and you know, and others aren't, which is but others aren't, which is good almost. You know, I often wonder how many horses get sold bad behavior just because their equipment doesn't fit.
Sure.
So I had to learn so much anatomy that I went back for the massage course too. But that's really more, you know, kind of
Why
a
not?
part-time. Yeah, that's just fun watching the horses relax into that. But you know, you can go. Each manufacturer that I carry, I also went to their manufacturer school. You know, they want their reps to know their saddle brands because every saddle really is different. It's kind of like if you wear a size 10 jean, I can't just go pick up any size 10 off the shelf and they're going to fit. So a lot of times when people try to hire me and they say, well, you know, I just want to know what size saddle to buy. You know, I'm going to look for something and I'm like, I can't tell you. I don't know. I can speak to the saddles that I represent, which is Albion, Amerigo, Black Country, Custom, and Steuben. And that business is separate from this store. You know, we have consignment saddles here. Most of these I wouldn't put in my truck because, you know, I really don't know much about a Lovett and Ricketts or a County or anything like that. So the only things that I have in my truck are the brands that I represent. So this is the tree. When you hear a lot about your tree of your saddle, this is an example of a tree. It's obviously a dressage saddle. You can see by the high cantle. You can see by the points. This is a very consistent. This is a wood sprung steel tree. And most companies make them very similarly. They're all wood sprung steel nowadays. Other than, you know, you can get a saddle made in Argentina, which this whole thing is a plastic. In our climate, especially, I don't recommend them because if you were to drop it or something, it is going to crack and you won't know it. Even this sometimes, when I test a saddle and I do this flexion test, there are times I don't know. And I have to tell the person, you know, without taking it apart, I can't tell you if one of these rivets has popped. And it does happen. Now, at the same time, you know, people say, well, how can that be? Because virtually I can stand and, you know, I am not a light person. That is not moving. But at the same time, this has never been put in, and you can see there's rust on this. So it does happen. If you hear creaking, I got a phone call here the other day. My saddle's been creaking for about a month. And she brought it in and it didn't necessarily flex this way, but when I put it here, it twisted this way. So there is something compromised in it. And there's really nothing as a saddle fitter out in the field that I can do, you know, short of telling her I wouldn't put it on my horse. Because if they're getting poked right here, you know, sooner or later, if this is poking them, they are going to buck you off. I have a couple of these, and I'm going to leave it right here because I want you to be able to see the difference. The other thing, maybe it's best if I hold these up. If you can see the difference in the head, the angles here, on those two, you can tell that they would fit a very different horse. These are both a medium wide tree, but they're meant for a much bigger horse, a much broader horse in the shoulders and the shoulder area. So my thoroughbred would not really be happy in this one. This is called a Freedom Tree from this particular manufacturer, and you can just see how much wider it is here. But again, it's the same, they're both medium wide. Okay.
Different manufacturers?
Nope, this is the same. This happens to be the same manufacturer, but this I would put on a big old warm blood. This is more what I would put on my thoroughbred. Okay?
Can I see it from this? Okay.
Can you see how much
They're both
broader?
medium wide?
They're both medium wide.
Wow.
Yep.
So there's
So
just a lot of difference between...
There is. So what I always say when I'm fitting a horse or when I'm taking the tracings, if you've seen me come out and work on your horse, there's a couple of different things, right? The wide, medium wide, narrow, you know, whatever it happens to be. This is like a clothespin, okay? These are your tree points, and this is like a clothespin. So if you can imagine a clothespin that is, you know, this wide trying to go on something that's this wide, right? It just can't come down. So that saddle is going to sit at an angle like this because it just can't come down in the front. So, you know, then I go to something wider and I can get it down, okay? The other thing I always say that there's two other dimensions. When you look at a horse, and most of you again will have seen me get on a stool or something in the back and look at the horse this direction. Because what I'm looking for is what they look like side to side and how symmetrical they are. Just like us, most horses are asymmetrical. My thoroughbred, if I look from the back going this way towards his head, looks like this. He's pretty wide, but he's a thoroughbred, right? My saddlebred cross looks like this from the back. Well, actually right now he looks like he's retired. He came up walking in the pasture the other day at me. I swear the earth shook. Boom, 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 boom. The whole barrel is moving. I'm like, oh my gosh. But again, while he was working, they both measured medium wide. But that's the other dimension is this way, you know, where that tree goes in the back here is, again, I could not put the same tree on them because the one guy looks like a beer barrel with feet and the other guy is much more sleek. So you can somewhat, this is kind of hard to see, that one of these is a little bit narrower in the rails. And manufacturers will have different models meant for, you know, different shapes like that. The barrel shape, the slab-sided, you know, the thinner versus the broader. The last dimension has to do with, you know, from front to back, okay? Again, my Arab saddlebred cross, you know, he's pretty flat. He doesn't have, you know, I divide my real estate up on my horse. This is kind of a bad example of a horse, but into thirds because I only care, when I'm going to do saddle fitting, I only care about the spot right behind the scapula, right behind that shoulder blade, to the 18th rib, wherever that happens to be. On some horses, you know, it's this long and whatever. But I divide that into 3 sections. The wither, because again, on my Arab guy, it's short. It's not very tall wither, and it's short distance-wise. And then from there, he's just, well, again, now he's out of work, so we got a little dip there, and then comes up a little bit. So I look for the wither, to the base of the wither, and then how much of a flat spot I have, and then what happens from that, where the flat spot ends, and they start to come up to the 18th rib. And again, sometimes you have horses that are croup high. You know, everything's going to come forward on them. Sometimes they are just flat, 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 especially a lot of these warm bloods that I see. They have this giant wither that then drops off, and it's flat like a 2x4. So that's another thing, and I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to set this one down. Because can you see how curved this one is? See, I have very little contact here. This comes up quite a bit right away. And that's for that horse that has a little bit more of a U shape. Okay. So again, those are the things, you know, those are the things that you're kind of looking for when you're talking about saddle fit. It's not just, you know, is my horse a medium wide and I'm an 18-inch seat? You know, I don't know those things. Okay. Are there questions on that part? That's kind of the foundation. Unfortunately,
Does the twist get put in that part, or is that somewhere else?
so the twist has to do, you know, with the part up here. Everybody always talks about their seat bones, and I want to be able to feel my seat bones in the saddle. The twist has to do with your pubic bone. And never once has anybody said to me, I need a wide twist. Actually, one person has said that to me, and they knew. And normally when people say, this saddle is really uncomfortable, it's much too wide for me, I'm really feeling it, you know, in my crotch, it's actually probably too narrow. There's not enough support there, okay? Can you imagine if I straddled this bench and sat down? I mean, this is, you know, this is relatively comfortable. If this were a 2x4, and I were straddling it, this would be really uncomfortable. And that's what the twist has to do with. If you're not getting enough support, and you know, people ask me, how does that saddle feel? It feels good to me. I don't know what it's gonna feel like for you. I had a demo that I had just gotten in the truck, and I was so excited because I wanted to try it on Oliver. And somebody else had called, and they really wanted to try it. I'm like, dang it, okay. So I gave it to her, and I got a call the next day. She said, I couldn't even finish my lesson. I hated it. And I got it, and I loved it. You know, the exact same saddle, you know, her horse is, you know, carbon copy of Oliver. So it really just had to do with, you know, her seat. So. Questions on that? Any, on those foundations or anything? Nope. Okay. So panel construction. Again, the saddles, all of the saddles that I sell are wool flocked panels. Just like the commercial where they say after 8, replace your mattress. Saddle flocking should be adjusted. I always say looked at probably once a year. This is an example. This one is, you know, pretty hard, but it's smooth. You know, so this really could be, I'm not sure what this is. This could be a function of the manufacturer. That might be how they do them. But I do complete reflax on some saddles. I won't do all of them. I've learned the hard way. But this, and I just hung on to this. This actually probably wasn't even the worst one that I did. But you can see the different wools, and this is only half of what came out of it. But, you know, if you kind of feel that, I don't know if you want to feel that, do not smell it. I mean, I can't smell right now.
Oh, it's just completely balled up, isn't it?
Yep. So that's pretty crunchy, and like I said, this is not the worst that
I
I've.
didn't think it smelled that bad.
It might have aired out now. That was a while ago, but.
So the flocking can be different colors. It doesn't.
It depends what. Yeah. So this saddle was probably worked on by, you know, saddle fitters over the years, and like I said, this is probably maybe one panel, you know, one piece of it that I just stuck in the bag to use for examples. There are different kinds of wool that all the manufacturers will use when they use a wool saddle. And they are very different qualities. So this, you know, now if you feel this, kind of play with that a little bit. So this is probably an Albion wool.
Ooh,
Yeah,
does that
so
feel
that's
good?
kind of what it should feel like. This, and it kind of feels the same, is a Black Country saddle. And I try to keep, you know, the same wool in the same saddle. So if I'm working on a Black Country, I'll use that wool. Albion, blah, 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 Amerigo Custom. I have all of them. This is what I will use if I'm working on somebody else's saddle, because this is a nice generic. I actually get this out of Michigan. Frankenmuth woolen.
Is this all sheep's wool? Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, and this is kind of a synthetic. And there are times to use a synthetic as well if I need, you know, a lot more support. I'll go with something a little bit stiffer like that. I don't know what brand it is. It's older. You know, based on the horse's movement or based on the rider, if I see something, I would probably go with a synthetic wool.
What's a synthetic wool?
It's just it's kind of a blend. I mean, I've never seen a blue
Polyester.
sheep before. It's somewhat of polyester, yeah, and it's dyed, and you know,
That's it.
it's not really wool, but it's still, yeah. I mean, you know, but it's firmer, so it'll
Yeah, you
hold
can
up
tell it's
more. So if I have, you know, a very overweight rider, and I'm fluffing up their saddle, I might go with this. If I have to put a lot in there, if I know they don't maintain it very often, I would probably use that. Okay. other materials, and people ask all the time, well, you know, what's better? You know, it really depends. If you are a one saddle for one horse, primarily with one rider, and you're going to maintain it, I suggest wool. With a plain cotton pad, to me that, you know, it's a breathable material, it's going to form to you and to your horse, and it's going to hold that position. So right away when I look at somebody's saddle, I can tell what kind of rack it's been put on, I can tell how asymmetrical the rider is, and I can usually start to tell how asymmetrical the horse is by looking at the panels and how they've settled. Foam, which is a lot more common in jump saddles, it's also a good solution. It has probably especially in a jump saddle, it has a little bit probably more cushioning, although usually for my jumpers or my eventers, personally, I just recommend an additional kind of half pad, some sort of additional cushion, just because of the concussion on landing. The other thing, you know, trainers or something might go, if they're going to put the same saddle on multiple horses, I think foam is a better solution for that, because it's kind of like your foam, you know, remember those old foam pillows? You know, you push them and then they come right back, right? It's, yeah, not even a memory foam. I mean, it just, you know, they come right back. You know, this is going to form, a wool is going to form to you and your horse. This is just always going to kind of come back. So it works for this horse right now, it works for that horse, it works for that horse. But, you know, when it's done, it's done. And I've converted some from foam because you can't put new foam in there. I've converted some from foam to wool. Like the Steubens, they come out very nicely when you do that, as an example.
If say you bought a foam saddle, you'd either have to convert it to wool.
Mhm.
You would not be able to fit the different foam in there.
No, that
How
foam
long
is
does foam
blown
usually
in.
last?
Couple
Depends
years.
on the riding.
It depends on the riding.
Couple
and
years, that's it?
That's
Oh,
all.
boy.
Oh, boy.
So how much does something like that cost? I have a Steuben right now, close contact, that I would love to get reflocked.
Usually I charge $4.25.
Okay.
Takes about a week. But I need to know in advance, so I plan the week. So,
Mhm.
yeah. But they come out, the Steubens especially, they come out very nicely in the
Are
reflock.
all Steubens foam or just the jumping?
No, most Steubens are wool, but you know, if she's got one that's, you know, old, it's going to be very hard. It's going to be probably older. The other thing is the an actual air panel. I don't think anybody's still making them. They have like little tubes that come out right underneath the panel that literally you know, like you blow up
panels or whatever they're
no, it's an air. It actually is air. You blow it up
Yeah.
like a beach ball.
Huh.
It's called a flare panel. I don't think anybody's making them anymore. It was a fad for a while. It was supposed to be the best thing ever. Can you imagine leaving a beach ball? And then, I mean, the inflation, deflation, and trying to
The
get
change
that
in
set
temperature.
right, the change in temperatures. Yeah, so. The other one is a care panel,
That's what I was talking about.
which, yes, is, do you know what it is?
No.
This is a trick, this is a trick
It's
question.
the interchangeable gullet system, isn't it?
That, and we'll talk about that in a minute. This is a care panel. Complete with duct tape. There's your 70 AB and your 72 AB, meaning front and back. This is what's on the horse's back. This is what, and the glue is coming off, but this is what's on the rider's back. I took this out of a wing tack and replaced it with wool, which also turned out very nicely, but why you would invest that, I don't know, but, I mean, this is literally what they are. This is a care panel.
So it's
So
like
there's-
it's like a foam strip almost, isn't it? Or is it air?
No, it's foam.
It's foam.
Okay.
That's what I
But
thought.
everybody,
The rider's side feels really hard.
Yeah, it feels
Have you ever ridden in a Wintec?
Just
I guess
Anna's.
Not
Anna's
a,
old Windex.
not a lot of cush going on there.
I had one and I felt like it flattened out on my horse's back and it
Sure.
pinched him. And
Mhm.
I remember my trainer telling me that he couldn't canter and I was like, well, that's a lie because I see him cantering all the time in the pasture.
Right. Yeah.
So once we changed the saddle to a saddle that it automatically had canter.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I say I wonder how many horses get sold because of,
Yeah.
you know, equipment.
Yeah.
So yeah, this always shocks people because they always think, oh, you know, those cares, you know, are great or whatever, and
Well, so that's the advertising.
yeah, so they have those care girths
yeah.
as well, and if you've ever felt that, I mean, they're cushy and everything, but this is what it is. There's, you know, it's
And did
all
they
that
do
is.
that with Wintex because of the price?
yeah, they're very they're
It's
pretty cheap.
economical and.
Yeah,
It's a great selling point. People.
yeah, I don't know the care panel, and everybody thinks it's air.
Yes, that's true. I thought it
Yeah.
was.
Mhm.
Kids get it and then they're like, oh, I can buy it and then
Right.
change horse.
And the other thing, those saddles, these are all plastic. This is all plastic, and 9 times out of 10 when I take one apart, they're all cracked.
Really?
Due to the extreme temperatures we have.
It's crappy plastic.
And people.
And it
It's-
does age. I mean,
They-
plastic gets brittle
Right.
as it ages too.
Right.
And people aren't going to care for it like they are getting this stupid. Just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not, yeah.
And so somebody mentioned the interchangeable gullet plate. A lot of the saddles now, even ones, I mean, a lot of saddles now because, and Wintec really started it with their adjustable gullets, right? So I can take this saddle, and this is the curvy one. This is the one that would go on Oliver probably. And let's say Oliver's the thoroughbred. He's got the nice high wither. I have plenty of wither clearance, right? And I feel like I got plenty of good shoulder spacing. I've got nice even contact front to back because his body goes like this. Everything's great. And then I get a different horse, and I get a saddlebred cross, and I want to widen this tree a little bit because that guy's been out in the pasture for a couple of years now, so I want to widen the tree. I'm going to put in a wider gullet plate, or even the ones that I carry, a couple of the brands are adjustable, so I can adjust it in the truck and I make it a little bit wider. Still not going to fit Solero. Look at what it's going to do on him. See, this is what Solero looks like. Not a cow. This actually, to me, looks kind of like a cow. But anyway, that's what his back looks like, right? And if I put this saddle on his back, this is what's going to happen. So I can widen, and that's kind of a, people say, oh, I got an adjustable saddle, I can use it on any horse down the road. Only if the horse looks like that and is just a little bit wider or narrower. So, if I always stick with thoroughbreds that have that kind of a back, then I'm probably okay, but otherwise I'm going to get this. Okay. So, Wintec does it by, I don't know if you've seen them, but literally this plate is not attached. So, with rivets and that, you unscrew it and you screw a wider one in and you kind of spread this out a little bit. This is actually this manufacturer makes an adjustable tree now. It looks just like this, but it goes in a machine. I can do that in the truck. 3 of my lines are like that. And it involves, this. When I do this in the truck, this comes apart. It's all stitched. You can, if you look really, really closely, see the stitch marks. So I take a razor blade and I cut these stitches and I pull this apart and I pull this down. So I'm exposing the top part of this and I put it in the machine and I stretch it and let it sit for a little bit and take the measurements, and then I have to stitch it back up. So invariably,
Stitch it back up by hand.
by hand. Yeah, these are all hand stitched. These are all hand stitched. Sometimes there's blood involved. Sometimes
I
there's
would think so.
4-letter words involved. Hey, Cassette, never do this again. Go buy a tack shop. And now you know how how that happened. I think it was one winter too many out there. But anyway.
I think I remember you telling me once that those can only be done so many times too.
Well,
It's not like you can just keep going back and forth.
most people don't. Most people really don't. I think, how many horses do you have in your lifetime where you're going to want to switch the same saddle? I can't say that I see that a lot. I had a client who had a young 4-year-old just putting under saddle and, bought an adjustable tree saddle because by the time the saddle came, the horse had filled out, so that worked out well, but hopefully that horse is done growing now. Jesus, I needed the ladder when it was 4 to take the measurements. It was like 18 hands. I'm like, oh my god. Billets are another one I want to talk about. Is one of my favorite topics. Billets break. Okay. I think this one belongs to this one. Yeah. Billets absolutely break. And when you see your hole, I don't know if I'll have a good example here. I don't have the other half of this one. I'll probably be able to find one here. When you see billets come, the holes are perfectly round. Perfectly round. When the holes start getting oblong like this, it is going to break. And this one has probably, this one is a really good example. This one's probably ready to go. Can you see the difference? And it may never happen. You may be so gentle with your girth or whatever. And on the dressage saddles, let's face it, you're not going to be able to ride with, 3 billets. So it is going to be very much an inconvenience, but chances are it's not going to happen while you are riding. It's going to be while you're taking up, hopefully not right before the show. Although you'd be amazed when I take the trailer to shows how many billets I end up replacing.
Oh, geez.
The jump
How
saddles.
fast can you do that?
Huh? How fast can you? I'm getting really fast. Although there's a lot of blood involved in that one too. They are easily replaced on most dressage saddles. Not quite so much on a jump saddle like this. I can do it, but I have to take the whole saddle apart. Again, I have to drop that panel because I can't get in there. And again, these are hand stitched. They're always, some of the, I don't want to say this wrong. Some of the cheaper made saddles, frankly, they are machine stitched on. The more expensive saddles, they're generally hand stitched. So these are just very difficult to get into because you can't get the needle, you can't get your hand up in there without dropping the panel. So it's, on a jump saddle, on a cross-country saddle, that absolutely could happen while you're riding, that it could break. So the same goes for your leathers as well. If you are always, if you don't ever swap them out, and frankly, for most of us, why would we? If you are always mounting on the left side and your leathers are always on the same hole, and why wouldn't they be? You really need to check your leathers once in a while because when that hole starts expanding, I had somebody the other day, their stirrup leathers broke. Now, again, in dressage, I can live with that if it happens, but on a cross-country course, I'm not so sure I'd feel good about that, right? So, check your billets, check your stirrup leathers. Do not condition them. When if you remember back to when you got your new saddle and how stiff your billets were, they should stay like that. You can do it maybe the first time or something, put a little conditioner on there, but they should be very stiff and they should stay stiff.
So don't clean them at all, or
well, you can clean them, but I
just
wouldn't
don't
be
put the
using the,
oil.
whatever you
Don't put any
use.
oil or anything
Yeah, I
in
wouldn't be
the
using the oil or the balm or the conditioners on them. You want to keep, you wouldn't want to do that. You wouldn't want to do that on your leathers or on your billets. Do you need some more wine, Pat?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's an empty.
She's like, oh, messing with my glasses.
Well, I was just putting it in the little
Yeah.
here. But, yeah, you set that down there.
Can I just say an observation
Mhm.
is, on each one of these, it appears And this stirrup,
The safety mechanism.
yes, is actually in a digging position.
Well,
They always
because
seem to be, because they're the
because-
hardest thing to get your stirrup leathers off. I hate it.
because you don't have your panel.
The camera.
Because you don't.
It just
Here
seems
you
like it's
are.
not
That'll be on camera.
following as much the angle.
Because you don't have your panel underneath there.
Yes, I am, I'm fine.
You don't have your panel underneath there, so that's really part of it. Now, if your stirrups leathers are hard to get on and off, and they really should be.
Yeah.
It also depends on how thick your stirrups are, your leathers are. When I go and I have, Albion's obviously one of the lines I carry, right? I love their stuff. But when I go to a saddle fitting, I could use a little too.
Okay.
I could just scream if I have to use Albion stirrup leathers because they're
so thick?
so thick.
Oh, I know.
Those crappy little winter ones are the best because they just fly
Slide
off
off
and
and on, yep.
So
Well, that must be why I'm frustrated, because I probably got
probably, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. No, but and poor Oliver. I mean, he has to put up with. I get a new saddle I tried on my horse, right? Poor guy, doesn't fit him, but
Now what's she trying on me?
right. So I have very purposely a pair of. But yeah, sometimes they do dig in a little bit, and I have a tool and I will pull those out. Don't ever raise these things up. I don't know why they even put the safety bars on there. I mean, that's just deadly, especially when I see it on a jump saddle. I want to just scream. And somebody told me one time, my trainer told me I had to put those up. I'm like,
I've been told that too.
never.
Why?
You want that stirrup. If it gets caught somewhere,
You want it to slide out.
you want it. I mean, we just had the discussion about how hard they are to get on.
Yeah.
But you definitely want that thing to come out if you're getting dragged. Right?
Right.
If your foot, because your foot's gonna be in there, and if you come out
If for some reason your foot doesn't come out.
if your foot doesn't come out, exactly, that thing needs to come out. Oh, I just cringe when I see that.
I actually had a leather slide off once when I was riding.